Hi, my name is Ed Klaus. I had the pleasure and opportunity of discovering Paul St. John's techniques back in around the mid-90s from a couple of friends that had suggested I go see him. They told me that he does postural analysis and make sure that your head's on straight, and I kind of thought it was a little odd. So I was skeptical going in at first, of course. Interestingly enough, Paul discovered a number of things that go back to my childhood. Back when I was a kid in high school, I was a very fast runner. I used to do the 50-yard dash, 60-yard dash, and nobody could touch me. But put me on an endurance run for 5 miles or 10 miles, and I had a problem. I even had dreams about it and never knew what actually was causing it. I felt like my stride wasn't perfect. I felt almost like clumsy, if you will. And years later, after Paul did the analysis, he discovered I had a half-inch leg length difference in my left leg, which was causing it. And it was many, many years later. I mean, I was around 45 years old when I met Paul when this happened. So to my relief, no surgery, no inserting needles or injections of anything, but basically a lift in my shoe took care of that problem. Had he not taken care of that problem when he did, I would have been surely a candidate for a hip replacement later on in my life, and that's something I don't think many people want to go through if they don't have to. As time went on, we discovered that other things with me. I had a major heart attack back in 1999. Matter of fact, there was a test that tests the enzymes that spill into your blood called a CK or sometimes a CPK level test. And the scale goes basically from 0 to 285. When I was in the ER, a young intern was standing over me and he said, "Mr. Klaus, you really shouldn't be here." And I said, "Oh, am I in the wrong bed, the wrong department? What?" He says, "No, you don't understand. Your test should be somewhere between 0 and 285. Yours was over 3,300. Much to my surprise, he was telling me I should have been dead. And years later, we discovered some interesting things because it was after the heart attack that I came to see Paul that he really discovered some fantastic things with me that helped me get through it. When I had my heart attack, typically most people have things happening in their left arm, a numbness, etc. And that didn't happen with me. Everything was in my right arm. Later on, I found out I was right side dominant with my arteries. Well, every time I would have angina, it would go to the right shoulder. Paul would work on this, and this kind of tells you exactly what happened with this whole situation, because I was rehabbing houses at the time. And after I saw Paul and he worked on my shoulder and I was getting major angina, I was working on trimming a tree with one of these little saws, electric chainsaws, and working feverishly on this tree, sweating up a storm, and my girlfriend was, Ed, stop for a second. I'm like, "What's wrong?" She goes, "Stop." And I finally stopped and I said, "What's going on?" She says, "Do you realize what you're doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Yesterday you wouldn't have been able to do this. You had angina. You'd be sitting on the side breathing deeply." And she says, "Right now you're working like there's no tomorrow." And I thought for a second, I was, "Oh my God, Paul did something to my shoulder that opened it up and I could do things again." So that was the second time that something happened. Back in my 30s, I had some major problems that I discovered one morning. I was getting ready. I had owned an ad agency up in New York, Long Island. And I bent over the bed to pick up my tie, and I didn't stand up again. My back locked, and it was very painful. And I stayed in bed for almost 10 days with heating pads and everything trying to cure it. And later in life, after this heart attack, I saw on the Oprah show that you could actually go and get a CT scan of your torso, and it'll tell you if you have cancer, if you have any problems with your arteries. So I called up to the very first clinic in the country in Costa Mesa, California, flew out Thanksgiving weekend, had the test done. They told me to come back in 3 hours because it takes that long for the interpolation of the software to figure out what they took a picture of. And I walk into the room, sit down. The doctor walks in. He goes, "Oh, my God, Mr. Klaus, you need surgery right away." And I'm like, "What? How bad is my heart?" He says, "Your heart?" He says, "I'm talking about your lower back. You got 3 herniated discs." I said, "Oh, I got a friend that'll fix that." He says, "No, you don't understand the seriousness. We need to put a rod in, screws, and we need to fix that." I said, "You don't understand. I have a friend that will fix that." And I came back to see Paul, showed him pictures of it. He started working on it, and about 3.5 months later, I had another CT scan done of my lower back. My discs are normal. No surgery, only with his hands. Totally amazing. The other thing that was really kind of interesting is when I was growing up as a kid, I noticed that I kind of looked like a turtle. What do I mean by that? If you looked at my shoulders, my head would come out forward. My ears were 4 inches in front of my shoulders. I looked like a turtle. I'd ask doctors, well, what's wrong with me? Why is it like that? And they'd put their arm around me and go, you know, we're all born a little different. That was their answer. They didn't have a solution for the problem. When I came to see Paul and I discovered that he actually went ahead and basically put your body back into the position it should be, which is straight, I told him about that. He says, oh yeah, he says, when you were young, did you have a fall or did you have any serious injuries? And I thought for a second, and I said, you know, back when I was 7 years old, I fell off of a porch, and it was about a 7-foot fall. Fell right on my back. Everything seemed to be fine. And I said, oh, yeah, and my mom told me that when I was around, was under 12 months old, my grandmother was washing me in the sink. They used to do that back then. And she turned around for a second to get something, and I flipped out of the sink onto the floor. So those are two potential areas where I might have hurt my neck. Well, it took Paul a number of months to do that. I think the ratio is for every year you have an injury, it's one visit to go ahead and correct it. And it was several years, of course. So during the course of fixing other things that he was working on for me, he would go ahead and work on that. And now I don't have that problem. And you know that there's something major going on when you go and leave your car and your rear view mirror is already positioned. You come back out after an appointment with Paul and you have to readjust the mirror. That tells you something changed, right? So my whole experience with Paul St. John and the wonderful therapists that work in the clinic with him has been nothing short of miraculous. I had another experience which was more recent where I had someone, actually 2 cars, plow into the rear end of my Jeep, causing the floor to buckle in the Jeep, and the car behind me was totally totaled. So it tells you the force of impact on the car. They, of course, asked everybody at the scene of the accident, do you need an ambulance? Would you like to go to the hospital? And at the time, I felt fine. But within a couple of hours, my neck started killing me. My upper shoulders and my lower neck, bad news. I called the office. They said, get in here right away. Paul was unable to see me, so Randy Clark saw me. And he says, Ed, you got whiplash. Good thing you're in here right away. He worked on it. All the symptoms went away. First day. Unbelievable. So just in conclusion, it's just been interesting, this whole experience, life-changing experience, very profound for me, that I have told Paul many, many times this statement that I believe had I not met him in my life when I did, I don't think I'd be here. I truly don't. So I'd like to thank everybody over at St. Paul Clark Pain Treatment Center for doing what they've done for me, and the many, many people that I've referred, because I want to spread the good news and tell people that are in pain that you don't have to take all these various medications and be on artificial medications for the rest of your life. You can get fixed and have your life back. Thank you very much, guys.
Out.